In this video, we're going to be rebuilding this EATC unit so it can start blowing air out the vents again. This is a combination in 2003 to 2011 Ford Crown Victorias, Mercury Grand Marquis, and Mercury Marauders. We're going to be doing this repair with common hand tools. All you're going to need is a ratchet, a 7mm socket, some grease, some needle nose pliers, a T20 Torx bit, a Phillips bit, and a flathead screwdriver. And as for the repair itself, the only parts you're going to need is some size 007 silicone O-rings. You can find these on eBay. You're going to want to buy extras because they're a tight fit and that can cause them to break like the factory ones, which is why this issue is happening in the first place. To start off this repair, you're going to want to go to the passenger side of your vehicle, right next to the door on this little trim piece of dashboard. All you got to do is grab it right here and pull it off. After you break all these clips loose, it will eventually just fall right out, just like that. And you can rest it, not hitting your ignition key, on the floor just like that. And you can now get to the 4 hex screws holding the unit in. Once you have the 4 screws out, you can grab it and pull it. After that, you just got some vacuum lines and 2 connectors. Now with these connectors, all you have to do is push down on that tab right there and pull it towards the dashboard. Sometimes they're stubborn, so you can use a flathead screwdriver to push down on the tab. Don't worry about mixing them up. You can't. It's worth noting for some of these vacuum lines that a lot of cars came with little plastic nuts that go down these posts right here. If your car has them, all you have to do is just thread them off. And then this can just be pulled right out. As long as you're careful with it, it won't rip. Now that we've disconnected the vacuum lines and the electricals, the next thing we should do is get to a workbench, because there's a few small screws we're going to be working with, and you don't want to lose them in the car. With the unit out of a car and on a workbench, what you're going to want to do is take out this bolt and this bolt with your T20 driver. This is the only time this thing's going to be used, aside from reassembly. After the screws are removed, you can take the top cover, pull it upwards like this, and then straight out. There's one small connector right in the corner. That red thing right there, all you gotta do is pull on it upwards and it should come right out. After you've pulled off the connector, this whole top housing, which is gonna be the center of your working space, can be completely removed and put flat upside down like this. There's gonna be 10 screws, all marked in green, that you're gonna have to remove to get this little assembly out of it. This is where your 4 O-rings are gonna be located. With all 10 Phillips screws removed, you can grab the center brace, move it aside, grab the center section, and it should lift right out of this housing right here. Your O-rings are going to be inside these little pistons, and the reason your air doesn't come out of your main vents is because air is rushing past them out these holes right here. Now I'm going to be demonstrating you the procedure on one of these cylinders, but when you go to do it, you're going to want to do it on all 4. I'll just do the other 3 off camera. You're going to want to take these tabs of the flathead and pry them upwards like that until they're about that sort of angle. I'll be back once I got it. After you get them started with a flathead, you can use your finger to pry these tabs upward. Now once they're at this sort of angle right here, you can grab these little side metal shields and pull them apart like that, and this, as you saw, popped right out. Now you can go ahead and pull this whole piston assembly out. So after you remove the piston, you'll probably notice a spring shot out at you along with a weight. Well, when we go back to reassemble, this is the order you want. The piston right here, the spring right here, and then this tiny weight that moves around is going to go in this orientation. You're going to have the small part of the rubber facing towards the piston, and the large part of the rubber back here facing towards the housing it came out of. Now it's on to the fixing part. With your vehicle, you're going to have little O-rings in this kind of groove you have right here. What you're going to want to do is use a flathead or a knife to cut them out or pry them out. Whatever the case is, they're completely useless and they're getting replaced. With the old O-ring off, you're going to want to take your housing and a little bit of grease. All you're going to have to do is just dab it on this edge right here. So when you go to slide the new O-ring on, it can have an easier time. Then you're going to want to grab your O-ring right here, and with being extra careful to not mess it up, you're going to want to feed it onto that piston and slide it all the way down to this notch right here. Now when you're at this notch, it gets a little tricky. My favorite method to do is to use a flathead driver to get under it and then you can work it around with your fingers to get it seated. Alright, so here we go with my method. You're going to want to take your flathead screwdriver right here and get in on the inside of the O-ring. Kind of like that. And then you're going to want to slowly pry it over the edge like that, so you can finally slide it through the O-ring as shown right here. Now once you have it like this, you can fold the O-ring over and then use your fingers to press it over the other edges, just like that. Now once you've done it to all 4 pistons, you can grab a tiny bit of grease like this and just walk it over the O-ring, because this thing's going to have a hard life for the next few years, and hopefully you'll never have to do this service again. And that should keep it lubricated so it doesn't break or dry out like the previous one did. Now begins the first stage of reassembly. In every single cylinder, it's going to look the exact same. What we're going to do first is take our housing right here and take our piston with the small rubber side up, as you can see right there, and just drop it right down that hole, just like that. And now we're going to take this guy right here, put a spring on it like that. That helps make sure it seats properly. Now we're going to put this right down that same cylinder, just like that. Now you can open these tabs right here and push down on that piston and slide these 2 tabs right here through their respective holes. Now sometimes they're a little bit stubborn, but if you keep at it, you'll get it just like that. Now you can use those needle nose pliers we talked about earlier to bend these down, or if you can take it, you can just use your fingers like that, bend those tabs right back where they came from, just like that. Perfect. So after you finish doing your O-rings in all 4 corners, you can grab this assembly and place it right down on the backing plate. Sometimes it's a little hard with the wires in the way, but just like that, it can go right back. All you got to do now is put your 10 Phillips screws back that you took out earlier, along with this backing plate right here. There you go. After you have all 10 Phillips screws placed in, you're going to want to mount this backing plate right back up to the EATC housing. Now don't forget about this connector you unplugged earlier. All you have to do is not hold it backwards like me. Put it like this and connect that right to its pin. With the connector in, you can grab the top plate, angle it backwards like this until those 2 tabs click right there. Now you can lower the whole back frame and it should pop right into place like that. Don't worry about putting those 2 screws in. We still have to test it before we throw it all the way back together. Once you're back in your car, you're going to want to hook up both connectors and the vacuum hoses to the back of your EATC. Don't worry about reinstalling these 4 screws either, because this is only going to be a test to see if it comes out the main vents. So after you have everything hooked up, you can just lay the unit right back in its seat area, turn your vehicle on, and let it build some vacuum pressure. After a few seconds of running, you can power up your AC unit, just like that. And now for the moment of truth. Vents on. Look at that. That thing is kicking right now. As you can see, this paper right here, when you put it up to get to it, is being forced back, as it should be, because our vents are now working properly. Let's put some max AC on this thing. Oh yeah. Well, now that we know the unit works, we can take it out and replace both of those Torx screws that we took out earlier. With both Torx screws in, we can now place each corner screw to secure the EATC unit to the car. These are 7mm hex bolts. After you've installed those 4 bolts, the only thing left is to get this big old trim piece back into its location. Now you can see there are some bolt heads right here. Now I have no idea if the previous owner just yanked it out and busted it off, but basically to reattach this, it's the opposite of how you took it off. Kind of just line it up and press it in. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. My end goal here is just to make you guys save some extra cash. These mechanic shops will probably charge you for a whole new unit, which is like $300 on eBay used, so you don't even know if it's gonna work. I'll talk to you guys next time something breaks on this car, so I can do a how-to tutorial on how to repair it.